All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Welcome. Thanks so much, AMEC, for hosting this webinar. We're going to jump right in. We're here to talk today about trusted AI, what it means, why it's important, how to attain it, specifically for natural language processing. I'll call it NLP henceforth. And unstructured text classification, unstructured conversation data research, think social listening, media monitoring, those types of things. And to bring this idea to life, we'll ultimately be showing you how we actually do this using Converseon's Converseus platform. It's a no-code AI-powered NLP platform. It's designed to enhance your analysis of unstructured text. So let's dive in here. Before we do, though, just a quick note about Converseon, who we are, who I am, and who my guest is. Just a quick intro. So Converseon, we are in our DNA an AI-powered NLP company. We built our first AI-powered NLP back in 2008, if you can believe it. So our mission is to apply that NLP to unruly, unstructured conversation data, and in order to accelerate the extraction of business relevant insights from that data, and ultimately predict things about business outcomes. So make that faster and more scalable. So in short, we're taking you from unstructured raw conversations to smarter business decisions through AI-powered natural language processing solutions. So again, I'm Ben Sigerson. I'm the VP of Solutions at Converseon. I've been with Converseon for over a decade now. In my current role, I sit at the intersection of our tech and our clients' specific objectives, their specific strategic objectives. My job is to kind of bridge the two in a way that ensures client success. So coming up with those bespoke AI-powered solutions that really aligns their needs and their unmet needs and objectives. And as I mentioned briefly, I'm joined today by a very special guest, Jake Bohle. Jake, I'll let you introduce yourself and describe your role.
Thank you, Ben, and hello, everyone. As Ben said, I am Jake Bohle, and I work for Bear Crop Science as the Global Social Media and Digital Marketing Insights Manager. I've been in this role about 2 years and have worked heavily within social media, digital insights, corporate communications space for, I don't know, the better half of 6 years. But in my current role, I work across many teams within Bear Crop Science, from sustainability to communications, and many other adjacent teams. I hope I can provide some additional insight today around Converseon and how we've been using it the last 2 to 2.5 years.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. I'm sure you will be able to. So in fact, let's talk about a little bit of that first. So before I dive into trusted AI and its application, I'd love it if you could set the stage for listeners in terms just of how you use Converseon today. Doesn't need to be much about AI so much or trusted AI, but just like how you use it, how it's providing value for you.
Absolutely. Currently, our work with Converseon has really focused on things like efficiency, accuracy, as well as one of what I would consider the most important components of it, the enrichment of the data that we have. Social listening is an interesting trade, and anyone familiar with it would tell you that it's constantly evolving as social listening platforms themselves are evolving as well. Through this constant change, we're normally hit with a number of headwinds. Those headwinds can include training to learn about those social listening platforms, as well as training those social listening platforms to fit specific needs that we're working towards. As a result, that's where we have partnered with Converseon to enrich that data and make it more efficient and more accurate.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. That's a great intro. Yeah, accuracy, efficiency, enrichment of the data. As I was alluding to earlier, taking unstructured raw conversation data, making it more actionable through the power of AI, and we'll get more into that in a bit. So let's start getting towards the core theme here. So to frame all this, what do I mean by trusted AI? Right? It really starts with standards and guidelines. Trusted AI is built around a series of really important criteria. They'll be familiar to a lot of you. I'm sure you've heard them thrown around: safety, accuracy and reliability, transparency and accountability, human in the loop governance and oversight, non-discrimination, and enacting these standards, it requires tools and systems. So trusted AI is not just some abstract set of guidelines or safety standards. It is trusted tools and systems that mitigate the risks associated with AI, enhancing its impact on the user's ability to trust the AI and ultimately get more accurate analysis out of it. So tools and systems are what power the practical execution of those standards and guidelines. Without the right tools, your guidelines are just abstract and kind of meaningless to your end users. Now, the exact nature of these standards is going to depend on how AI is being used, and there are a lot of different applications of AI. Again, today our focus is really on natural language processing, NLP, really specifically like text classification in support of unstructured conversation data research. So for you, customer insights folks, communicators, market research folks, people working in social media and social listening, it's really geared towards you. A common type of NLP classification, if you need something more concrete, would be like sentiment analysis, very basic type of thing. So that's really the realm we're talking about today. And the demo that I'll show you later is focused on enacting trusted AI for that type of unstructured conversation data research. And third, what's trusted AI? If we want to enact trusted AI, it also means acknowledging the current status quo and that it must change, right? Most AI systems in use today, they don't make the grade. We'll get into why not in a bit, but practically speaking, for NLP classification and research, enacting trusted AI will directly impact how your NLP models are trained, they're validated, they're deployed, and they're maintained over time. Again, all with that goal of making it more useful, maximizing their effectiveness, while minimizing their bias and mitigating risk. So, moving forward, we can't talk about trusted AI without first acknowledging sort of seismic shifts that have occurred very recently with respect to standards and guidelines, that first bullet point from the previous slide. So, to ensure that trusted AI is taken seriously, we're now seeing it getting embedded in all these new regulatory frameworks and laws. We'll soon see it becoming a requirement for both producers or vendors and consumers of AI. So AI regulation, safety regulation is coming. That's a fact. And we see some of the evidence on to that effect on the left here. Some recent headlines specific to the U.S. The executive order from President Biden on safe, secure, trustworthy AI. We have a quote on the right from the EU, which gets right to the core of trusted AI, which is that it depends on good data governance. High performance AI systems, they require high quality data. High quality data depends on good data governance and management practices. But this is all very abstract, so I want to take it briefly out of the abstract. And Jake, can you talk a bit about AI safety policies in place at Bayer and how your organization sees AI safety?
Yeah, for sure. I would imagine that Bayer is probably not so different than many other companies that are currently looking at AI and setting guidelines for their employees of how it can be used within their organization. Within Bayer, we look at it as what the potential offering has to benefit us in the sense of, is it going to provide efficiency? Will it help with accuracy and several other opportunities? Now, one thing to keep in mind, though, is that we are proceeding cautiously, especially with internal and confidential information, by not including that into the model. That is not to say that we don't trust it. It's just a matter of being safe with our information and keeping it confidential. We are truly weighing that risk and value, and given the newness, for lack of a better word, of the AI models, we want to ensure that no data put into the model could be brought back out by another organization. With that in mind, as we look at it with our social and media data, that is all public facing data. So we realize that the risk or the limitation, if you will, to the organization is very minimal. And it's able to help us drive those insights and greater efficiency using AI and Converseon.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. That makes me think of like a really important facet of AI governance, AI trust in our space, if you will, which is you kind of hit the nail on the head, is knowing what's going into training your model and knowing that you're not in violation of any policies, privacy agreements, things like that, privacy policies. It's really important to have AI transparency in terms of the training data, right? What's actually going into what the model is learning from. So, getting into the practical application of trusted AI and AI governance for for listening data, unstructured conversation data research specifically. I want to throw out a few questions for everyone listening right now to think about. Really, again, really relevant for social media monitoring in particular. Ask yourself, where is AI being used today in your tool stack? Do you know? How accurately are your AI models performing today on your data? How are you testing and scoring them? So how do you know how accurate they are? Is it sort of a manual anecdotal test, or do you have sort of statistical methods of assessing that? If you don't know, can your vendor tell you? And if you wanted, would you be able to participate in that training and testing process? Would you be able to have oversight of what goes into training and testing your AI models? Now, these are all really critical, practical considerations for enacting trusted AI in our industry. And if your listening or monitoring vendor can't answer them, you're going to need either internal or third-party provided methods for addressing those questions, especially as AI safety just gets more serious and more seriously enforced. So Jake, can you talk at all about how we are addressing these issues for Bayer's social listening data?
You bet. As any social listening professional probably would, we monitor the data on a consistent basis. The thought process being that we can ensure accuracy, which translates into removing irrelevant content, as well as making sure that it's really towards the topic that we're trying to track. As you all can probably imagine, this is very much a part of our job the aspect of our job, I should say, that can take the most time and can hinder us from being efficient to bring those insights back to the business partners, not only as quick as possible, but also the insights that are truly impactful. This is where we've kind of bridged the gap with Converseon, as it has helped us internally monitoring. In addition to Bayer internally monitoring our social listening exercises, the Converseon AI model has helped us to overcome those time efficiencies where we're not spending as much time training and sifting out through heavy data. And by heavy data, I mean multiple years of data, etc. Additionally, it has allowed us to dig into those deeper insights that may get overlooked when we don't spend as much time looking into them. If we feel the model is starting to stray, which by the way is very rare, we do have the ability ourselves to go in and train it further, or in some cases, simple and quick call or email to Ben and the Converseon team to help us sort that out. Converseon has really helped us to enrich and mold our data to paint a more accurate picture of what is occurring, and it helps us preserve data privacy as well.
Yeah, no, and thanks, Jake, and yeah, it's a pleasure working with you guys as well. That point you raised about, like, this is a huge data set we're talking about. Like, there's anytime you're performing this type of listening data, it's a constantly evolving, constantly updating and changing, and also massive historical data set that we're tasked with making sense of. AI just obviously, makes sense for scaling human intelligence across that data to make sense of it. But like you said, like, there's this, we need to know, how can we know that the AI is accurate on such a large data set? And that's a perfect segue to the things we're going to get into a little bit later. So, hopefully those questions about the practical application of trusted AI in our space are thought-provoking for the listeners. Let's talk quickly about, like, what is the value of trusted AI, right? So far, we've kind of talked, Jake, you started to talk about the value, but at least for my part, I've kind of been talking about it in terms of risk mitigation, avoiding regulatory issues, not falling behind as the rest of the world innovates. But, like, what are the benefits, right? And to really boil it down, I would say there's two things that trusted AI delivers. It delivers AI accuracy and AI transparency, meaning, accuracy means the AI correctly gives you the answer you're looking for. Simply put, the transparency means that, all the while you're able to monitor in a statistically representative way how well the AI is performing overall on your data, thereby making that AI a predictable and trustworthy tool, in your research toolkit. And the benefits of that accuracy and transparency are, one, you're going to get sharper insights faster out of your data. And you alluded to this earlier with efficiency, Jake, right? It's really about that speed, right? Speed to insight, but also make sharper insights that you might not have found otherwise without using these tools. And two, it's about removing data quality doubt, meaning you'll be able to trust in the correctness of the insights and findings that you extract from this data, and you'll be able to easily communicate the trustworthiness of those insights to other stakeholders in your organization, especially those who might be skeptical with good reason. So, with this idea of tangible benefit in mind, Jake, can you speak at all about how, and you kind of touched on it a little, but can you talk at all about how AI accuracy and transparency have been important to the work that we've done together?
Yeah, absolutely. With the work that we've done together, accuracy and transparency are at the forefront of all of that. We really lean on these AI models to create those efficiencies so we can spend more time in the insights. I probably sound like a broken record, but when we're looking at these larger data sets, larger queries that are quite exhaustive, or it's a topic that is very, very spoken on social media, it can become quite taxing. And so it has allowed us to work on a broader number of topics with a greater level of complexity. You know, it's hard to pinpoint a specific topic, but just off the top of my head, we think of a topic, say like climate change. That conversation is massive. There's so many different components and different aspects of that, and so it has allowed us to really dig deeper and spend more time in it as we can allow the AI to be accurate and transparent and train it and sift through the data for us so that we're not running into irrelevant content or content that could be misleading. Additionally, social listening has come a long ways in 6 years. It used to be much slower with potentially inefficient noise and training. As I mentioned before, the platform can be very slow. Now, with trusted AI, it can be much more agile and it can be optimized. And now we are able to trust it, which allows us to move much more swiftly.
That actually, I'm going to get into this in a moment. It's like a perfect segue. Like the fact that AI has been around for a while, right? It has been in social listening for a while, but really the point now is not that AI is something new in social listening. It's that it's come a long way, and that it can now be agile and optimized and trustworthy. And we can trust that it's not going to give us these noisy outputs and cause us to have to go through these sort of inefficient QA processes, etc. So that really again, like I said, that kind of gets into the next point. So thank you, Jake. We've just spelled out some of the benefits and the value of trusted AI. That paints a picture of why trusted AI is great to have. But to understand why it is a must-have, we have to kind of acknowledge that there's a problem specific to our industry that's in need of a solution. And that problem is that data quality doubt is extremely widespread among users of social listening, media monitoring, customer listening platforms, anyone working with unstructured conversation data, even though all these platforms use AI and have used AI for a long time. So, what we have now isn't the absence of AI, it is distrusted AI. That's our starting point. That's what we're working against. And that has been the case for, around a decade. Most platforms have had some form of AI for, at least that long. So, question is, although data quality doubt and distrusted AI have been this elephant in the room for so long, no one has really done anything about it. Why is that? And the answer is pretty simple. And you kind of got to this too, Jake, with it was just too onerous in the past, right? The maintenance of AI-powered NLP historically has just been seen as too costly and too difficult to implement. In fact, a lot of providers in the past, they just, and continue to be the case, they just don't even measure the performance of their NLP systems, let alone sharing it with clients. And if you don't believe me, you can ask your listening platform users how much they trust something like the out-of-box sentiment analysis or other built-in NLP in those platforms. They'll tell you right away. I hear time and time again that data is messy. It requires a lot of manual QA in order to make it usable. But that's an AI-powered system that is not trusted, right? That's distrusted AI. So Jake, I'll lean on you again here to take it out of my sort of abstract ruminations here. Can you speak at all from your experience with unstructured listening data, not just at Bayer, but throughout your career? Like, how have you dealt or been forced to deal with noisiness and unstructured conversation data, social listening data, in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's just, address the elephant in the room. Social media is an interesting place. It involves many different languages, several different slangs, various terminology, which ultimately complicates things for social listening professionals. We really want to try and get into the mindset of a consumer or an individual online and how they speak about it. Um, I tend to joke with colleagues and friends if they ask what I do for a living or how I do what I do. And I tell them that social listening professionals can be walking thesauruses because we need to understand how anyone is going to speak about something and how many different ways they could speak about it. I was actually just telling Ben this the other day, but if we think about social media over the years, and hopefully I don't date myself any type of way, whether it's older or younger, but we think of slang like, oh man, that is whack. Well, when I look at a product, I don't know if that is a positive thing or a negative thing. It really depends on the context. And so that is where we as social listening professionals look at our queries and say, how do I need to get this verbiage so that it is going to accurately capture what we need? Additionally, if you're working with a brand, it can get very convoluted depending upon how your brand spells their name. Additionally, if that name has a different naming convention or meaning in different languages. In a past life, I worked for another organization, and one of their brands literally meant crown in Spanish. And so we had to do social listening exercises for that so that it would adjust so that we didn't pull in so much irrelevant content. But all of that to say that this should be and is normally accounted for by a social listening professional. As you can imagine, and as I mentioned before, it's very taxing because we're working with not statements, we're working with and statements to make sure that it's only capturing what we need. And that is where this AI is really helping us. It takes that manual component of sifting through data for the irrelevant content, as well as going back into the search and removing it from the query out of it. Now, it's not exactly perfect. That's not a deterrent, but obviously there are components to, as we go into a social listing query, we have to make the edits, but it does allow that training of the model to pull that out of something like maybe a net sentiment score or any other ways that you might be modeling the data. And that is how Converseon has really helped us kind of cut down on irrelevant content and optimize the way we do our social listening exercises.
Yeah, thanks, Chick. I mean, you're getting to something that is really at the core of this, which is this issue of data quality. It's an unruly, wild data feed. It should be. That's not a problem with the data set itself. But yeah, you're getting to this truth, which is that historically, it's really effectively been left to the user, the analyst, the customer to figure it out, to deal with that themselves. They're not necessarily given a really robust, scalable toolkit for dealing with that. And the result is, that as an analyst, you're often left with this sort of overwhelming task load of cleaning up your data set just before you can even begin to report on it. And while you may be able to successfully do that, depending on what you're reporting on, it can be very hard to then scale your efforts to more and more research initiatives, let's say, because it's so sort of human effort intensive. So the result of this sort of status quo we've been describing is that customers are kind of left in the dark on data quality, left to deal with it themselves. They don't trust the out-of-box NLP in their monitoring platforms. For executives and business decision makers who are consuming the insights that's coming from this data, they often don't trust this data as a source of insights, or they kind of look at those findings with an asterisk on them, as very directional or qualitative. They don't trust them quantitatively, see them as having limited business value. And for the vendors themselves of these platforms, there's this constant risk of churn because customers get fed up with low data quality. They move on to another platform, and then sort of rinse and repeat, right? The same process kind of repeats itself. So how do we address this? How do we deal with distrusted AI? To deal with it, to get serious about it, we need AI governance. And that starts with admitting that AI models are not magic. If conversation data is constantly changing over time, then the performance of the AI-powered NLP, you better believe it's changing too. So in other words, set it and forget it just does not work. It is the status quo still, but it doesn't work. Governance of AI-powered NLP on this sort of unstructured conversation data, that means AI performance assessment and maintenance as a service provided on an ongoing basis on client-specific data. I need to be able to tell you, Jake, at Bayer, how accurate your AI models are on your data feed specifically this month, last month, the month before, and in perpetuity going forward. And I need a scalable way to do that. And if we can successfully do that, if we can deliver that rigorous assessment, we will have mitigated what I think is the core driver of distrusted AI and data quality doubt, in our space. So if we can remove that data quality doubt on the unstructured listening data, we'll be a big step closer to unlocking the benefits and the value that we talked about earlier. AI accuracy, delivering sharper insights faster, transparency that removes data quality doubt and enables us to communicate the trustworthiness of our research data. So I think we've kind of framed trusted AI, why it's a must-have. I think let's get kind of into the actual demo here. So the Converseon platform's AI governance system is what I want to show you guys today. It's a tool. It's the only tool right now in social and media monitoring that's designed to do exactly what we've just talked about. And Jake has alluded periodically to how it's been beneficial for the Bayer team. But what it does is it provides a fully platform-supported method for telling you how accurate your AI is, your NLP is on your data specifically on an ongoing basis, thereby removing that data quality doubt, making your AI trustworthy, making it trusted AI. It also enables customers to be hands-on in this process as much as they want. So as Jake knows, you can participate directly in the testing and the retraining of these models. It gives you control over the AI that you're using. And perhaps most importantly, this system that I'm going to show you is it's powered by a patent pending algorithm that really reduces that costly manual effort of data labeling that Jake alluded to, just like the work of whether it's building all these queries to filter your data or it's just going through data and manually filtering things out. That's a huge time suck. It's a huge money suck, right? So this algorithm enables us to scale that testing process very easily. And it provides our users with a statistically confident assessment of their NLP model's performance based on a minimum viable labeled set of data. So I'm going to show you the system in action in a moment, but first I want to just quickly explain how it works step by step so it's easier to follow along once I'm kind of jumping between tabs in our platform. So it starts with deployment, right? Deploying NLP models AI to our conversation data. In our demo case, it's going to be social media data and news data hosted in a third-party social listening platform, Brandwatch. Second, as part of the NLP sort of workflow setup, we'll be sampling or auto-sampling the data. That means as data gets processed day over day, week over week, month over month by our classification job, we're going to be generating those statistically representative samples of that data for a desired time interval, weekly, monthly, quarterly. And then based on that sample, the third box comes drift detection and testing. So automated drift detection just tells us, has the conversation changed significantly since our last test? If it has, then we move forward to an actual test. If drift is excessive, then users can label the sampled data through a labeling interface. And critically, again, that's where this patent pending algorithm computes the statistical certainty of the model performance based on a minimum viable sample size. And the result is that you only need to label a handful of posts to get to a really statistically confident sense of your NLP's performance. So that algorithm alone changes the AI governance and data labeling process from a slog to a scalable and efficient process. And then finally, in that fourth box there, Converseon will compute these performance metrics of the NLP based on our labeling. So F1, precision, recall, accuracy, gold standard metrics for NLP model performance that tell us how accurate the NLP is. And based on those report card results, the users can choose whether or not to feed their labeled data into their NLP models to retrain and optimize them. And again, this process is kind of repeated cyclically. So I'm going to jump into the live demo now in a moment. But before I do, Jake, any thoughts on like the implications of this system for Bayer? And I apologize if I'm asking you to repeat yourself.
No, you're totally fine. And yes, absolutely. So my thoughts on all of this is where I work every day. I work in the tool and the data every day, because I believe that to fully understand this system, I need to be fully integrated. And this is where I actually have to give some props to Ben and the team, because the level of transparency that Converseon has given us has really changed the way that we maintain our social listening, which also gives us confidence in the data that it provides to us daily. We're able to look into the topics that maybe we preset towards the beginning of our journey with Converseon, and now we can actually go in and dig deeper into those topics that we feel there's more story to tell. That kind of leans into the other aspect of this system, is that there's a level of customization. Kind of to the example I gave earlier, when you look at a wide variety of topics, but maybe like climate change, there's so many different segments of that conversation. And there's so many different ways that can be dissected and learned, that provide learning opportunities for our organization. And so as we look at those, we're able to go in and not only build those out, but retrain the model to say, like, this is an approach we want to take, or this is something that we want to kind of consider. But most importantly and lastly, we're able to trust the data as we're not only working in it constantly, but there's a snowball effect. As any of you who may have worked with AI or are looking to work with AI, and as Ben has kind of mentioned throughout this today, it's constantly improving as we train it, as outside AI models receive data from individuals that are asking questions or working within them. They will continuously improve. But more specifically with Converseon, as we train it to the topics that we're working towards, it will only get better. It's just like any professional that works in a field that requires continuous education. The model is no different. It will only grow and it will only become better. And that opens up opportunities for organizations like ours to find new insights, to build out further strategy. It truly pays dividends as we seek to learn about new topics, ways of measurement, and initiatives that we are working towards or could potentially benefit from. So,
Thanks, Jake. Yeah, that's a perfect segue into the demo I'm going to show. And also, it's about this sort of ongoing testing, right? Iterative testing of the data, and then based on that, with a sort of evidence but data-driven approach, optimization, right, and expansion of the classification system over time, right, to make it better, as you were saying. I see a question which I'm just going to answer quickly from Pauline. Pauline's asking, how many repeats do you do when setting up the system, and how frequently do you repeat once it is set up and running? So that's a great question, because we're headed there right now with the platform. But you see on the screen right now, it says repeated at regular intervals. So that's set up when you set up your sampler. So when you set up the sampler, it can be weekly, monthly, quarterly, or annually. So however frequently you generate that sample, that's how frequently you are testing the NLP model performance on a statistically representative sample drawn from your production data set, from your listening data. So for most of our clients, we do it either monthly or quarterly. And I think that answers the question, Pauline. But feel free to follow up with a question if I'm not quite getting to the root of it. So let's move on here into an actual platform demo. Let's see this in action on a real data set. We're going to, as we've discussed, what I'm going to show you is a demonstration of Conversys's AI governance tool. Again, just to frame this, what it does is it tells you how accurate your NLP is, your AI is, on your data specifically on an ongoing basis, thereby enhancing all of your NLP in your social media monitoring environments with trusted AI-powered NLP. So let's just pop open the demo here, and I'm trusting you guys. Jake, can you guys see the Conversys landing page here?
you bet.
Great. So as I mentioned in that flowchart earlier, this process starts with deployment. So we're deploying our AI-powered NLP models to the data that we want to analyze. So we've got to select data, etc., and then select our models. In Conversys, this happens on the classification jobs page. So I'm going to hop over there right now. And I'm just going to search for a particular job that I want to demonstrate this on for you guys. Okay. Let's see here. Yep, so here we go, Airlines Reputation Intelligence. So I'm just going to open up this job and click edit so you guys can see what's going on under the hood here. We're going to go to the job data flow, and we can see basically the overall configuration of this classification job. So it starts again with a data source selection and then specifying user selected models that are used to classify and categorize that set of data. So in this demo case, we've got data coming on the left here in this blue line box from Brandwatch. That data is, as we see in the job name, it is about airlines. So we can see here it's about like a couple of major American airlines. So we've specified our set of data that we want to classify, that we want to apply our NLP to, and we specified a date range for which we're going to apply that. So we can go as far back as the data has been collected. We can apply our NLP to that data in the third-party listening platform. The next option or step here is to select the models we want to deploy, right? So we're going to open up the Converseon box here to get a look at that. You can see we've got a couple of different models in here. We've got a sentiment model selected here, so the general purpose sentiment model. We've got that sentiment box selected. We've got a range of other custom NLP models listed down below. An airlines model for identifying the voice of customer, a model for identifying posts about trust, about ESG, and a couple of fine-tuned large language models, really cutting-edge models that are identifying user attitudes, sort of like an emotion analysis, and also content type, which is like a voice segmentation that's really good for understanding campaign impact, organic versus paid and owned content segmentation, that type of thing. So we've specified our models. So with that, we're ready to move, basically send the results back to the listening platform. That's what's happening in this final green box here for Brandwatch. That's sending the output back to the listening platform. So a full round trip classification here. And then we've also got a auto sampler here. So if I open this up, this is what I was alluding to earlier. We basically specify how frequently we want to sample our data. And in this case, it's monthly. So we're getting a statistically representative sample of this data as it's getting processed through the job. So with that, we're basically ready to kick off our classification job. So we just click save down here on the lower right, and the job's going to start running. From here, we're basically now ready to jump into what that testing process looks like. So after the user specified time interval, in this case, it was a month, we're going to have a sample, which we can use to test our models in that sample for that time period. To do that, we're going to hop over to what's called the reservoirs page, where we can review our collected data samples. So I'm just going to hop over there now. So here we are. We just went down to reservoirs here, and we're in the model assessment reservoirs page, and we can see all of the samples that correspond to the classification job I just showed you. So each sample has the same name as the classification job, and in the interval start and period columns, we can see which sample is the most recent. So we want to look at the sample that we just collected for the month of November. And again, by reviewing this sample, we're going to get a statistically representative picture of NLP model performance on this airline's data set specifically for the month of November. So to do this, we click review and we select which model we want to test. So I'm going to go to the sample, click over here, click review. And you can see all the models that are active in this job. So I can select which one I want to review. And for this, we're just going to look at two models: sentiment, everyone's familiar with that, and content type, which is a voice segmentation model that does like owned versus earned and organic sort of voice segmentation. So again, we start by selecting a model. We're going to select sentiment. And now we're on the sentiment model review page. So from here, we can push a set of the sample data to a labeling interface where a user can then begin to review the sentiment of each post and decide on the correct sentiment value. So there is a human, this is really that human in the loop review we've been talking about all along. And based on those human supplied labels, the performance of the sentiment model will be evaluated dynamically in Converseon, meaning as you label, I get an updated picture of model performance. It's constantly changing a report card. And it gets more and more statistically certain the more you label, right? Sort of common sense. So we can find our labeling symbol in the labeling interface using this unique ID. So I'm just going to copy that, and I'll just pop over to the labeling tool here and search for that chunk of data so that I can label a post or two. So let's hop over here. Okay, I'm going to search for that ID, and here we see our labeling job, right? So we found our labeling job, and we can see I've already labeled a few of them, so some progress has been made. I've labeled a handful of posts already. And we're just going to label one more just to sort of illustrate the process, right? So I'm going to look at this post. American Airlines seeks to ensure diversity, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of a neutral news post. So I'm just going to click neutral, click submit. Okay, and that's going to take me to the next one. So that's basically what the labeling process is. You just do that for a handful of posts. And the key here is, as you'll see in a moment, you don't need to label a lot to get to a really good picture of the model's performance. So to get to look at that, let's go over now to the results and metrics page. Okay. And right away, we see a report card for our sentiment model's performance on this sample of data. So this report card has, one moment, had basically several key features that ensure we can easily get a representative sense of the model's performance. So we can see in the level column over here, the statistical confidence associated with each model's performance scores. So Converseon only shows us high confidence estimates of the model's performance. It's always going to be 95% confidence. Second, and this is the most important feature, this patent pending algorithm I mentioned earlier has computed all of these model performance scores based on a very small set of human labeled posts. So if we look at the evaluated rows up here, we can see it's just 56 rows. And we can refresh that evaluation, and it's gonna go up by 1 to 57 because we just labeled a post, right? So we can see that I was able to get to a 50-ish post. I was able to get to a fairly confident assessment of our model's performance. So if we look down below, we can see that we're 95% confident that the model's accuracy right here falls somewhere between 79% and 95%, right? So that's like a 16, 15-point range. So if that range is too wide and we want a more precise sense of the model's accuracy, we can label a few more rows. And as we label that width, the difference between the minimum and the maximum is going to decrease. It's going to shrink. But the real key here is that minimum value, right? So if we are satisfied with that minimum bound value, then we can basically move on because we know that the model is at least that good, right? So we know that the model is at least 79% accuracy. The estimate is that it's 87%, but really it's somewhere between 79 and 95. So if 79 is good enough, then we can stop testing. We know we're good enough. If it's not good enough, we can keep labeling, get a more precise sense with a smaller width of estimation of the model's performance, and then decide, do we need to retrain the model, or are we happy with its current performance, right? And just for reference, right, I mean, 87% or 79%, those are very, very good performance numbers for a sentiment model compared to the status quo today. Your typical social listening platform sentiment model is probably going to fall somewhere in the 50 to 60% range with accuracy. So we're already talking, dozens of points of accuracy increase. Scrolling down, we can also look at the per label scores, right? So this will help us diagnose exactly where the model might be strongest or weakest. So we can see immediately that the model does very well at identifying neutral and negative posts. If you look on the bottom there, it's weakest at identifying it's strongest at identifying neutral and negative. Really good F1. The precision is actually perfect for negative. The recall could maybe use some improvement. But the positive sentiment is really where the model's weakest. It's still quite good, but it's not quite as good as neutral or negative. So that might be food for thought for us to say, all right, this is where we should focus our optimization and our retraining efforts. And we know this with statistical certainty, right? That is where the model needs work. It's not just an anecdotal assessment of the model. It's not just sort of putting your finger in the air and sort of assessing. It's we know that positive is really where the model might need some work. So that's our sentiment model. Let's look at one more model. Let's go back to our reservoir page, look at that same sample, go to review. And now we're going to click on that content type model. And again, this model performs like a sort of a voice segmentation that's ideal for understanding campaign impact, among other things. So it breaks down listening data by news, promotional, user-generated content, organic content, that type of thing. And this model is a state-of-the-art fine-tuned large language model. And when we look at those performance numbers, I think that shows immediately, right? So compare this to what we just saw with the sentiment model. And this model is performing very impressively. Again, just based on a handful of posts, 50-ish posts, right? We are quite confident that the model has a very high accuracy, somewhere between 91 and 100. And we have a pretty tight width or interval here. So we know that it's at least 91% or et cetera, right? So we have a really good sense of this model performance, and it's performing very well based on a very small set of data. So that minimal requirement for human labeling, that's what makes this whole workflow scalable, because we don't need to label a lot to get to a clear representative sense of performance. And we can repeat this process across many models and data sets on an ongoing basis. It's easy also for clients to participate in this process. So that confident sense of NLP performance, statistical confidence, that's really what we mean by trusted AI for our use cases, right? I can trust these NLP models to accurately categorize my unstructured data feeds, which means that I can move on to more sophisticated types of reporting on this data rather than getting mired in like data QA, data quality assurance and cleaning. And case in point, let's look briefly at the analytical output from this very job, right? So here we're looking at a BI dashboard that we've set up based on the airlines data I just showed you, based on that same classification job. And because we can trust the AI in that classification job, we can perform benchmarking and reputation scoring across a wide range of issues and topics that are just a super rich set of measurements that we can get, and we can trust all these measurements, right? So we're looking here at ESG topics across each of the airlines, and we're scoring their reputation on each one. Over here, we're looking at customer experience topics and doing the same thing, right? So that's really the Converse's AI governance tool in action, and a quick look at the type of impact it can have and the types of analyses we can achieve now that we trust our data. So let's kind of move on here and get back to some final points here and just recapping a few things and some key takeaways. And Jake, thanks for bearing with me here as I've kind of gone on and on about this tool here. I'm just going to quickly recap, what the tool provides in terms of a checklist of features that make up a successful AI governance system for NLP classification. So I think questions about these features that I'm about to talk about, they should really be a part of every RFP for any listening or media monitoring platform going forward. Training data governance, transparency and control surrounding the data that goes into training your models. Strong out-of-box performance. That means AI models that are out-of-box already carefully pre-built to deliver highly accurate classification. How do we know it's accurate? That gets to the next point. We need ongoing human-in-the-loop testing that needs to be scalable, right? We need to be able to say how accurate your AI models are with statistical validity on an ongoing basis on your data specifically, via streamlined, in-platform tools and automation, just like what I've just demoed for you. Now, these are all necessary features of an effective AI governance tool for NLP. And finally, we need seamless optimization and retraining. So based on that human-in-the-loop testing, we need to be able to easily retrain our models as needed using the data that's most likely to improve the model's performance. And again, all of these features I just outlined, they are integral to the Converse's platform. And via our sort of plug and play integrations with various listening and monitoring platforms, we can literally act as a trusted AI add-on that plugs seamlessly into your current tool stack. So that's brings us to our final page here. I just kind of showed you Converse's. We've defined the key aspects of trusted AI for classification, unstructured conversation data. Let's boil it all down to just a few key takeaways. One, data quality doubt and distrusted AI are really the current status quo. They are endemic in unstructured listening data, unstructured conversation data. Black box, set it and forget it NLP is a big part of that problem. It contributes directly to that distrust and in the data quality and in the analysis. And AI alone, however exciting or new or cutting edge, is not going to magically fix that problem. So the question, in other words, is not whether your vendor is using AI or whether they're using LLMs or GPT, but instead it should be how are they using it and how critically are they ensuring and reporting on the quality of its output. And to that point, to fix the problem of data quality doubt, achieve trustworthy AI and NLP in our industry, and to stay compliant with future AI safety, all AI, no matter how sophisticated, it needs to be complemented with ongoing testing and optimization. Testing and optimization are must-haves. and they're really cornerstones of AI governance and trusted AI for NLP classification. And finally, the Converseon platform's AI governance tool, as I hope is just clear to you from our demo, it's really designed to address exactly these issues in a scalable and easy to use manner. So it seamlessly applies state-of-the-art NLP to your unstructured data feeds. It tells you how accurate your AI is on your data specifically on an ongoing basis. And only with tools like this can we really mitigate the root cause drivers of AI distrust and achieve trusted AI in our industry. So, to push for this level of service across our industry, media monitoring, social listening, buyers should start to expect this from the NLP they're getting. And that starts with asking the right questions of vendors, right? Don't ask, are you using AI? Don't ask, are you using LLMs like ChatGPT? Instead, ask, how are you ensuring AI accuracy on my data specifically? How are you training your AI? How are you enabling me as the user to participate in the training and testing processes of that AI? And if you're interested in learning more about Converseon and how we can enhance your listening data with trusted AI, don't hesitate to reach out. We'd be happy to provide a demo. But with that, I'd like to close it out, just turn it over to you, Jake, and let you just expand on how trusted AI has been valuable or changed the game for your work.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you, Ben. Honestly, thank you for having me join you today. But yes, I'll kind of speak to it from maybe like the consumer perspective as we are using the tool. My biggest takeaways are really around the efficiency, the accuracy, and the optimization. We talked a lot about it today in the sense that it's taking the more extraneous time or the time that we spent in the tool making maintenance or making quick changes with a social listening platform, I should say, to moving more towards the insights, digging deeper. What is that added layer? Even if it's maybe a smaller piece, something that is gaining traction, that we're catching it early. The tool really brings that value because it moves swiftly and it's very agile. We can also shift focus very abruptly. Especially in today's environment, things change so quickly, and it allows us to stay on top of those trends, topics, and issues. In the sense, in the way that we utilize it, it provides us almost with a scoring mechanism, or it does provide us with a scoring mechanism to clarify, and so we can immediately see what if something's an issue or if we're doing something right. It also allows us to evaluate a benchmarking of our initiatives and the competitive field. We can see if we're maybe behind or if there's an area that we can learn from. And then lastly is just to bring up the snowball effect again. I think that kind of gets overlooked sometimes. AI, it has various personifications from various folks, but that snowballing effect is just that it will only get better. And that's not to say that it's not great right now, because it definitely is. But as we bring in those new topics, new trends, and it's getting better, it should lead us to more strategic opportunities, and it helps us mitigate risk, not only as it happens, but also helps us mitigate it much quicker. So with that said, I will throw it back to you, Ben.
Yeah, no, thanks. That's a great closeout, Jake. Thanks so much. I don't have anything to add to that. But I think that the continuous improvement part, the snowballing effect, is a really good point. Like this system, trusted AI system, the governance tool, that is what ensures this ability of this snowballing effect, as you said, of continuous improvement. It can only get better if we're using a tool like this, because we know how accurate it is today, we know how accurate it was yesterday, and we can continue to assess that into the future. Yeah, thanks a ton for joining me, Jake. I think we can. I want to turn it over to Q&A. We've got 5 minutes left, I think. We had one really good question during the call, or during the webinar. But yeah, if anyone has any further questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A or the chat. I did hear that maybe the chat function wasn't working as well, so let's maybe use the Q&A box if possible. Just give it a moment here to see if anything trickles through. Okay. I think we can probably move on from here. Yeah. So if anyone has any questions, I mean, really fine. If you're not sure what they are right now, you can always reach out to me. Oh, okay. We have one question. Implementation. Is there an API? Yes, there is an API. So this whole system works via API. Yeah. So it is, fully RESTful API. It integrates with, we have, in fact, beyond the fact that there's an API, we have pre-built integrations, API-based integrations with a number of key listing platforms in the space already. So, to name a few, like we integrate very seamlessly with Brandwatch, as you saw earlier, with some meltwater platforms. So there's a couple others that we integrate with as well. We also have a lot of experience building custom integrations and custom database integrations with data warehouses, setting up custom data warehouses. So in the integration front, we are very platform agnostic. We have to be, right, because we're not a listing platform. We're the AI enrichment layer that kind of plugs into those environments. Yeah, good question. Thank you. All right. Well, with that, I will close it out. I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who gave us your time and attention today. And Jake, thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me and talk through. Without your sort of practical experience with this, I'd just be jabbering on. So, so thanks a ton for lending your expertise and your voice here today.
No worries, my friend. And again, thank you for the invite. I would also encourage anyone with the webinar now or who happens to watch it after, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to either one of us. I'm happy to give insight from maybe the client perspective, but obviously Ben is going to be more than happy to give insight from the Converseon perspective. You can reach out to us any way you like, LinkedIn, etc. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, Jake. Thanks, everyone. Take care.